welcome to Local Edition on Time Warner Cable. This is the Sacramento Report, and I'm Steve Swat. My guest this segment is Senator Leland Yee, represents portions of San Francisco and San Mateo counties. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
You authored really one of the more controversial pieces of legislation that we saw at the Capitol the last month or so of the session, dealing with, I guess, giving juveniles who commit first-degree murder with special circumstances a second chance. Tell us about that.
Well, that bill is SB 9. The fact is that there are about 300 some odd youngsters who are in the prison, state prison, and they're going to serve that time in prison for the rest of their life. They're going to die a natural death in prison, and that's rather unfortunate because many of these individuals were not the trigger person. They were not the shooter. They were sort of the lookout person. They were the accomplice, maybe driving the getaway car, whatever it may be. And because they were young, and the Supreme Court and research has validated the fact that these youngsters are just growing and developing. Their brains are still developing. And therefore, it's very, very difficult to predict what their behavior is going to be like when they are adult, because the brains are still developing. Their thought processes are also developing. So it seemed to me that we ought to give these youngsters a second chance. And what do I mean by that? What happens then is that these youngsters would have to serve 15 years before they are ever considered a second chance. And so they have to then go back to the court that sentenced them and plead their case, presenting evidence that they've accepted responsibility, shown remorse, gotten their GED, a whole host of sets of criteria. And if the court then decides that they have really turned their lives around, that then they are given a second chance where their sentence is then changed from an LWOP, life without the possibility of parole, to 25 years to life.
You know, the critics of this legislation, and primarily as Republicans throughout the legislative process, say that this really flies in the face of Proposition 115, which was on the ballot in 1990 and was approved by the voters, which says, no parole for juveniles who commit murder with special circumstances. And so they say the public is not on your side on this.
Well, what we are saying is that we're not eliminating that particular sentence. What we're saying is that youngsters who commit these kinds of crimes or are an accomplice to these particular horrible crimes, they're still going to be sentenced to LWOP. But what we're saying is that within that LWOP sentence, then there are these kinds of provisions, and so that is allowable in the law. And so we're not violating any of the letter of that particular proposition. All we're saying is that judges, if you want to still give an LWOP, you can do it, but then we in the legislature are saying that, well, let's give them a second chance.
And this is primarily for those juveniles who are convicted of murder, but they did not pull the trigger. Many of them, were just sort of there.
Well, no, it's going to be available to any individual who has this particular LWOP sentence.
Right.
Now, we did take some amendments whereby, if you committed torture in the process, if you killed a peace officer, you would not then be available to this particular sentence. But beyond that, it would be available.
A judge's discretion.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Senator Yee, thanks for coming by and talking about this very interesting piece of legislation.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to our viewers also for watching Local Edition on Time Warner Cable. A reminder that you can see this and other interviews on My Government on Demand, also on YouTube. I'm Steve Swat. Have a great day.